Aloha everyone. Here I am all cozy in my house atop what I believe to be an ancient pyramid on the island of Kauai. It's raining outside. It's all misty and blowing. And I'm in the rainforest. I can look outside and see the little birdies hovering on the lanai to try to stay out of the rain. And it's just a really mystical day. So I thought it would be a perfect day to read to you and discuss something that I wrote in one of my source editions. So we're going way back to, let me see, it is 1986. And I'm writing about a vision I had at the time concerning the sacred Ark, the On Ark, the sacred On. Now, wasn't calling it that here. I was calling it the Ark of the Covenant, which it is. There are two Arks of the Covenant, as those of you who follow my material know. At least from my sources, that's what it says. And but this is discussing the sacred On. I hadn't differentiated yet. I knew there were two, but I don't think I was using those terms, or at least I'm not in this article. So I had had a vision concerning the sacred On. At this particular time, as I've mentioned before, the On moves around on the planet, not by horse and buggy, but it moves interdimensionally and is placed in different thresholding chambers. And at the time I wrote this, it was in a thresholding chamber on another dimension, or at least in between dimensions, perhaps we can say. It's kind of hard to follow. It's like a shell game. Where did the P go? You know, it's moving in between dimensions and times and experiences. So this is what I wrote about it at the time. In the background, by the way, as I experienced this, there was music playing on my stereo, and I kind of refer to that now and then, and that's what I'm talking about. Okay, now we begin. Oh, one other thing. That is, this is so full of symbolism. I could not possibly come up with images for it, not in this lifetime. So I created just this one collage image that I developed from various pictures on the web. And but I put it together in this collage. You can either focus on this picture, or you can close your eyes and do your own visualization within. Either way will be great. So now, I think now I'm actually going to begin. I hope the rain doesn't sound too loud on this, but I felt this was the time to do it, so I'm going for it. So just relax, take a few deep breaths, either focus on the image or close your eyes, and we shall begin the journey. I was in a subterranean passage, which I sensed was beneath a chamber I had previously visited. The passage was immense, and the floor, ceiling, and walls were entirely covered with small tiles, engraved with symbols. The hall was shaped with the ceiling a shorter width than the floor, which caused the walls to angle in toward the ceiling, sloping like they would inside a pyramid. I seemed to float down the hall until I came to a larger opening. Here a waterfall came out of the suddenly indent floor from somewhere underground and flowed over a precipice down into a clear pool below. I didn't see where the water went after it fell into the pool, but I believe it siphoned off in a direction outside my immediate focus. Interestingly, I had a New Age music tape on my stereo during my journey, and as I came to the end of the hallway where the waterfall was exposed in its solemn drop to the pool below, the music I had been playing suddenly changed its orchestration accordingly into a dramatic surge of strings. At just that moment, I looked up beyond the falls into something almost impossible to describe. It appeared to be an advanced kind of hologram, very large, maybe a fourth of a city block, squared. Like a hologram, it had dimension. It was permeated with a diffused blue pearl filled with swirling stars. In closer view, planets bared their souls before me, telescoped as large spheres of brilliant markings, some ringed with gases wedded to moons. It was as if the cavern wall had simply vanished at that place, and instead time and spaces withdrew their grasp of the elements, quantum leaping to some distant point in the universe. Multicolored streams of laser light began to come from some undetermined source and play against the planets. As certain colored beams struck the different planets and sections of space, I heard musical harmonies other than what was playing on my stereo. Images began to appear in the dimensional opening, being formed from the hollow streams of light and color. They were geometric in shape, each form coming out of the last, which was dissolved in the newer image. This imagizing occurred between the two largest planets in my view. After a while, the direction and intensity of the lasers changed, becoming more concentrated toward specific points and increasing in the energy of light. The light bands crisscrossed from a vertical line down which brighter light swirls appeared. A human image began to take shape around this vertical track. It was then I realized that the light swirls running down the line were the major chakras of the body. As the human form was being light woven, I saw quite a different light enter the form. Something deeper inside me whispered that this was a soul. As the glowing human-like form remained suspended in the space between the planets, two men who looked Egyptian came to my attention. They were standing outside the dimensional screen or holograph on the cavern floor. One was on each side of the hologram. One was on each side of the suspended form. Directly in front of the three figures was the pool. Each of the Egyptians held a small, long-stemmed gold cup, which they dipped into the pool. They then handed the glowing form suspended between them their cups. The form took the cups and drank from them. After a moment, the form stepped out of the hologram and floated down to the pool. He began to appear of a more solid elementation. I could not see his head or face, as he wore a golden helmet shaped like a lion's head. It covered his head entirely, even his eyes. Aside from the helmet, he wore only a sand-colored cloth covering his loins and buttocks. His hair was fair and contrasted to the Egyptians who stood on either side of him. They wore Egyptian-style skirts and hoods of pink and light green stripes. The two darker-skinned men led the sightless lion-headed man into the pool, up to his waist. They then bound his bare chest in thin gold coils. I have seen Thoth wear similar bands, but I knew by the lean build and light skins that this was a personage not Thoth. Correction, this was a personage who was not Thoth. I didn't make that clear. The two helpmates then led the lion one from the pool. There they dressed him in an apron of gold metal that went from his waist to just above the knee. They led him to the right of the pool, and holographic opening for a distance of about 55 feet to a simple stone door. The lion one entered alone through the door into the room beyond. It was a much smaller room than the cavernous one with the waterfall, pool, and hologram. It appeared misty inside, as if evaporation of some kind were present. A soft golden light filled the space, gently washing the walls in a medium of moonlight. My eyes were riveted on the center of the room. There, in a rapture of refracting light, atop a golden oval about 4 feet in height, a pointed crystal pierced the veil of the light that shone about it in a canopy of reverence. The crystal measured approximately 12 feet from base, atop the oval, to the tip of the highest point. There were several spires to this pristine gem, each spatially harmonious to the whole, bearing the appearance of a castle in miniature. It may have been small for a castle, but it was an inspiring sight for a single crystal, a beautiful sight. I had become so involved in studying the crystal, I had abandoned the lion one. Turning my attention to him once again, I saw that he had removed his helmet. I looked into his face. It was beautiful in countenance, yet his features to my eyes were somewhat strange. He had a thin face, with a slightly pointed chin, accented further by an Egyptian-style braided beard. His eyes were very, very golden, appearing as liquid amber. The hair was reddish blonde, worn straight and long to his shoulders. His hairline did not begin until almost the center of his skull. He stood there before the crystal with his arms raised. Well, I had thought that perhaps, as I'm reading this along with you, not remembering at all, that he might be completely lion-headed being, but obviously he's not. As I said, there are variations, complete variations within Sirius. And as I'm reading this now, I'm seeing him again. And I notice his eyes are somewhat larger than our human eyes. Not immensely large, but definitely larger. In some way, the crystal was reacting to his body. I felt this, but at first there was no visual clue. Then the multicolored laser lights that I had seen from the man on the holo screen came from the lion one's body and entered the crystal. It was clear that the crystal was not charging the man, but that the man was activating the crystal. I too felt a part of this, and not just a spectator. I knew then that I was accessing this dimensional encounter through Maya, the state of Maya, which is, in Thoth's interpretation, it can be illusion, but it could also be looking through illusion. There are various aspects to the use of the word. The way the word is used in the ancient context denotes its meaning. So I was looking through illusion. I became aware of a large golden ankh around his neck. In the center of the ankh, the loop, was a smooth stone that appeared to have a dark matrix with iridescent pinks and light greens flashing and moving as if alive in a swirl at the center of the darkness. On his left hand was a small pyramid-shaped stone set in a ring mounting. This stone also had the black matrix flashing with pink and green. I remember seeing the pink and green combination once before on this journey in the design of the Egyptians' clothing. Suddenly my attention was once again on the large crystal in the center of the room. It began to slip down inside the oval pedestal. Then the top of the oval pedestal into which the crystal was receding seemed to melt away, revealing a honeycombed interior. This interior then slid back, and something came up from the center. As it arose to the top of the oval, the room's energy changed dramatically. I cannot find the adequate words to describe the change, but everything seemed to be more in focus, not just visually, but in conscious understanding. The object that now adorned the oval was even more magnificent than the crystal had been. I knew I was gazing upon the Ark of the Covenant. I recognized it as it looked very much like the original traditional representations of the Ark throughout history. So I'm going to paraphrase a little here and say that I was suspicious that my mind was controlling how it looked. And of course, in a way, that's true. But Thoth was also saying that the vision of the Ark comes to us the way it does because we are literally seeing into its true image. So what we create in our real world does look like it. Not exactly, but, close enough to say, aha, that's the Ark of the Covenant. And so that's why there was this similarity. Although, that said, he also said there was original casing to it that I was not seeing. And the original casing is not something that would come out in mass consciousness so much because it's not time for that yet. And the original casing was destroyed in some way, and he didn't say how. So we really don't know what it might look like now because it's changing all the time. And this was in 1986, of course, that I wrote this and saw this. So let me see where I wish to continue here. And of course, I also say this was the first ark and not the second. In other words, the Ark of Grace, the sacred On, and not the Ark of Karma that was created after the golden calf scenario. To return to the Ark as it was revealed in the room with the Lion One, the golden beings or angels perched on the Ark had their wings facing inward toward one another. But when the Ark had completely emerged from the oval, the wings turned outward. At this point, I was instructed silently to leave the room. I merely thought of leaving, and I was on the outside, back in the larger cavern where the two Egyptian fellows were still standing by the door. I knew that something very sacred was occurring on the other side of the door that I was quite simply not worthy to witness, or at least not ready to witness, which might be the same thing. After a few moments, the Lion Ones came from the covenant room, the Lion One came from the covenant room, and when he emerged, he once again wore the golden lion-headed mask. The two escorts led the Lion One back toward the holoscreen. As I looked in at this portal or dimensional passage, I saw those pink and light green lights that had been in evidence previously flowing and turning in the portal. The man with the mask entered the hollow portal as if by magic and began to unravel his light until only the heart chakra was visible. Then that too disappeared. When the Lion One completely vanished, I too vanished from that point in Maya. I was now inside a triangular white craft, looking very much like a modern jet, except it was all one big triangle with no visible midsection. Now, what am I describing but these triangular objects that are being seen in the sky so much now, that are black, but the same shape, that were not being seen, I don't believe, when I wrote this. This was much later, like very toward the end of the 1990s, that they started being seen at all, if I'm correct on that. But this one obviously is not. Some of those black ones are, they're back engineered, by the secret government. But they back engineered from something, and this is the something I believe they were back engineered from. Okay. Now my guide was more evidently with me, although I could still not see him. Was this guide Thoth? I honestly did not know at the time and still don't. As the craft soared through an atmosphere that was filled with crystalline forms for which there are no words to describe, my host informed me that we were traveling into the world of the Lion One. a dimension apart from ours. After we soared a while through this crystal universe, we went through a light barrier into another dimension, this one obviously organic. I asked for clarification as to how these dimensions related to Earth as we know it, and to the Lion One's journey into the cavern. I was told that these dimensions we were passing through were matrices for the essentiality of Earth. They were each a mother essence for this world. There were several basic mother essences from which the Earth was composed via the process of archetypification. And I had only been exposed to two of them. So archetypification, once again, is a term that I've really not fully explored with those, but basically focusing on something to look a certain way or be a certain way until it is a certain way. It's manifestation, but not just plain and simple. It's a process of completely, continually focusing on it. And generally, it's done by masses of people, like Coca-Cola signs are archetypified, but in the lower sense of the word. Their living light symbols become archetypifications in order to turn them into actual living symbols. It's a complex subject, so I'm not going to get into it here, but that's what he's calling on when he says this. The Lion One was an ensouled being of the crystal essence. My guide told me that I could not at this time be made fully aware of the Lion One's mission with the Ark. It was explained that he had awakened the process inside the Ark in preparation for the 21st century, beginning April 24th, 1986. Now, for those of you who are not familiar with this part of my work, I had been told that our calendar was incorrect, and actually the beginning of the 21st century was going to be on April 24th, 1986. And but that because the planet, everybody on the planet had a consensual reality that said that was not the date, and they didn't even know about that, that they were focusing on our calendar date of January 1st, 2001 as the correct date when we entered the 21st century, then so it was. So all of our energies are focused on that date. So that date was, in all intents and purposes, the date we entered that field of awareness. However, that does not nullify April 24th, 1986 as being the date it actually began. So from the period of that date to the January 1st, of 2000, we have a period of time that is a gestation period. It's a powerful, powerful period of time that we were in then, whether we knew it or not, in preparation for staging the events of the 21st century. And it was a period of time where we could make adjustments and corrections to that path. I say we, the planetary consciousness on the higher level of experience that we operate on. And indeed, we probably did. Certainly we did on some levels. Because it being the actual date, there was power to it, a great deal of power, whether we realized it or not. I could go on and on with that, but I'm going to go back here and see. Okay, I think I have read everything that I wanted to read. Let me take a brief look here. Hi. Well, actually, I'm going to skip along to another part of this 1986 issue because I believe this is very relative to the vision I saw, and then we're going to discuss how that might be relative to now. That apparently 1986 is the year of Halley's Comet. I don't even have the date in front of me of that, but obviously I believe that it is, from what I'm reading in my issue here. I should Google that. But anyway, let's just continue with this, because what I'm saying here is Halley's Comet's encounter with Earth in this phase of time has triggered, so obviously it occurred, an alternate current in the crystalline grid of the planet. This alternate current is not in place of the present currents, which translate into electrical extremely low frequencies, ELF, in the interactions between the Earth's crystalline grid and the solar and lunar shells. The lunar emanations are channeled into alternating current, AC, and the solar radiations into direct current, DC. To quote from issue 182 of the source, a current of 160 AC and 220 DC combines in strength to a total output of 380, numerically similar to the 350-mile focus of the lunar and solar shells. In terms of light mathematics, comprehended by ultra and inner Earth scientists, the current output of the lunar shell as it interacts with Earth's, excuse me, I seem to have swallowed the planet there. Let me try that again. Okay, with Earth's crystalline grid is 88801.01 of a metacycle, or oscillatory rate of atomic matter as it transmigrates into the composition of light matter. Light matter is the third state of matter, matter and antimatter preceding it. Well, that's interesting. I'd forgotten that entirely. Let me read that again without choking on Earth. The solar current is 1 million.0 of a metacycle in current. The combined lunar and solar current is 99801.02, which equates in exact milliunits to the radius of the solar and lunar foci. But that's not what I was trying to read. This thing about light matter. Light matter is the third state of matter. Matter and antimatter precede it. Okay. The alternate current triggered by Halley's, not alternating, but altern, operates within the dimension of light matter, forming in the dimension of matter the capacity of a binary cell, an element in a computer which can store information by virtue of its ability to remain stable in one of two possible states. So to avoid confusion between the words alternate and alternating, we shall call this new alternate current a binary current, or BC. With the BC now a part of our planetary energy field, a greater capacity for Earth bonding among like spiritually aware minds is possible. This will apply among, hold the thought, among another, this will apply, I skipped something there. This will apply among one another and with the Earth as the living mother. The preparation for this began in 1982. To quote again from issue 182 of the source, this planet is in the process of altering its energy properties, beginning with the magnetic field maintained essentially by the natural crystalline grid. A condition of pyroelectricity is being introduced by both subtle, continuous, and not so subtle, discontinuous. Temperature changes as a pyroelectric effect created different charge interactions between the lunar and solar shells and the Earth. The tremendous power of these shells was tapped by the ultra and inner Earth terrestrial geoscientists, creating a boosting signal for tribolites inception. This frequency power is equal to the lunar solar shadow or focus on Earth of 98801.02, the combined power of the lunar and solar output. As discussed in previous issues of the source, tribolite is a frequency of knowledge that projects equilibrium through the ethers of the planet, strengthening the latitudes of justice and divine will. It is conducted through the Tibetan Egyptian tribunal Ibis, the highest court of the illumined, the tribunal for spiritual laws of the earth, on earth. Now, with the natural binary current being emitted from the planet, tribolite will have a greater latitude of world penetration. The whole process of tribolite is too expansive to repeat in this present issue, but is detailed in 182 of the source, and further discussed in issue 383. These back issues are available. Okay, now I have to say, what went wrong? I mean, if there was going to be justice way back there in 1986, and I'm looking at what's going on now in 2016, ooh. But as I say that, I'm joking because I do understand it. We're going through a period of breaking up these positions that have been locked into the planet for eons and eons of time by, perhaps we could call them the archeons. I know that is a word, I'm not even pronouncing it correctly, and I don't even know all about them because Thoth has rarely mentioned them, if at all. I think he's mentioned them using another name. So that's a topic I want to go into with all of you, and I'm going to get Thoth on it and, open it up. But as I'm speaking now, I'm getting that it's locked in by those beings, but not because we're subject to their will, because we allowed it. We have to see ourselves as part of the whole. And the archeons are us, as the fairies and the angels. And that part of us has locked that pattern in. And that's a whole subject we won't go into here. But suffice to say, what's happening now is it's breaking down. It's all breaking down. That's why all of this awful stuff is being revealed to us. It didn't just start happening. It's now being revealed to us in its deeper and deeper levels. We always knew something was going on, but we didn't really know how much and how deep. And we don't know yet. I say we, the world, the world population. But it's beginning to happen. And that's why it's such a difficult period for us to see all this stuff being thrown into the fan, so to speak. But as it is, we can become aware of it as a world consciousness, and we can clear it. We can transform it. We can love it into light through our warrior natures, our spiritual warriors. Okay, so where am I here? The BC operates as a shield, keeping the AC and DC of the lunar solar shell from being tapped by the Antichrist, which, aside from what we understand as an entity, is an anti-force field. There is a specific vector that was given to me by my sources, a simple design, yet it conforms to the BC planetary shield. This image is a powerful vector acting as a deflector, preventing interruption of natural current. Using this symbol in mental imagery should aid the individual in concentrating his singular force upon a positive, faith-oriented objective, as well as act as an actual conduit of sacred geometry for the BC in deflecting physical malfunctions of planets, shuttles, etc., which have been occurring with increasing frequency because of the growing anti-force field building on this planet. Well, now that's interesting because the only tools I had at hand to create something like that then was a paper and pencil. So I don't know where that went, but you know what? I might be able to draw it back, bring it back into my consciousness, update it, and have it for us again. That's something I will put in my back pocket here. This particular vector we shall call the Archel, A-R-C-H-E-L. It is aligned with the etheric body of Christ, which as a reflection of the true spiritual body of the Christos is also a field of force, but not anti-force. The Christ energy projects a complete circuit, forming a shield of light matter equal to the radiating force field of the individual soul times 1,000. It may seem sacrilegious to equate divine power, but even divinity is a tangible resource from which all tangible resources are derived. When the etheric double of the Christ leaves this planet on April 24, 1986, the Archel will remain as it was created by the Christ Ka, or double, during the Ka's time upon the earth, from its release in Egypt, November 1985, until its journey back to the Blue Star in April of 1986. In conclusion, the Archel is now the point of focus in symmetry that dynamically defines, the new binary current of Earth. All right, well, that's a lot to think about, at least it is for me, because I had forgotten some of these things. They become memories again a little bit as I read them, of course. So, in conclusion, we can see that a lot has been going on for a long time, preparing us for where we are now. This is a definitive, a defining moment in time. And Thoth equates it now to several deep underwater rivers that have been flowing for a long time. But now somebody's pulling a lever and tilting their directions so that they all converge. Now they're still under the earth, but at that point of convergence, there is a node, and that node will trigger the release of a real wellspring of all of this energy that's been building for us for so long. It's not a point on the planet. It's a point in our timeline. And how we choose to operate within the timeline and our each individual version of the timeline is absolutely essential right now. We must sustain heart-centered consciousness in every way that we deal with ourselves, our fellow human beings, our animal planet species companions, everything on this planet and beyond. And I know we're not perfect yet, but that's not what's being asked of us. What's being asked of us by the universal accord is that we simply recognize it. And when we recognize it, we are opening the font of becoming it. And that becoming in and of itself, in the deeper lattices of its structure, where we are now aiming into, that is where this becomes reality. So I leave you with that thought, and also I would encourage you to maybe look at your own pathing with the experience that I had in 1986 and see what it opens for you, because such things are timeless. I was reaching into it from 1986, but you know, that was my timeline. So you might want to see where it takes you. And so, as Roy and Dale used to say, until next time, happy trails. Aloha. They didn't say that.